maybe Dodgers prospects? Is Dodgers the top farm system, you think, in this division?
Yeah, I think Dodgers were definitely my initial like gut feel. This is the best farm system in the division, but I have to say, like I'm kind of looking at the Giants and giving them a second glance as I dig more into their prospects. I think I'd probably still lean towards the Dodgers, just honestly because I have a few more players that I'm like personally a fan of. I don't know if like top tens in any system count as personal cheese balls in the BA lexicon. Yeah, I'd probably lean Dodgers. We can start there. I mean, it maybe feels tired for non-Dodgers fans to hear us talk about this, but yet again, I think the Dodgers have a really quality system coming off back-to-back World Series championships. So there's no like end on the pipeline of talent here for Los Angeles. They just keep on chugging along.
Yeah, the Dodgers have four players who are definite or who are going to be definite top 100 prospects on our 2026 top 100 list. When you've got a team that's made the postseason for 13 straight seasons, you're consistently picking at the back of the draft, and you're signing free agents who are rejecting the qualifying offers. You're losing draft picks. You're getting your first round pick pushed back. You're operating with either the smallest or one of the smallest bonus pools in the draft every year. And then internationally, I don't think it's a huge disadvantage, but because of what they do in free agency, they're usually operating with a smaller bonus pool relative to most teams. The bonus pools, though, I think are large enough there that I don't think it really prevents them from signing the players that they like. So the Dodgers really should have a bottom 10, bottom 5 farm system, but they don't. And then you look at some teams that have been in a long rebuild.
Maybe another team in the LA area.
Yeah, some teams that have been picking at the top of the draft, teams that get extra draft picks every year through the competitive imbalance rounds. And the Dodgers have a better farm system than some of those teams. It's a better farm system than the Nationals. We'll talk about the Rockies later. It's a much better farm system than the Rockies have. So I don't think it's a top 5 farm system overall, but just to have the level of talent that they do, given where they're drafting, I think is impressive.
Yeah, I think you can look at the system and say like there's maybe not one headliner that really gets you excited, but like you said, they still have 4 players that we view as slam dunk top 100 types. And I feel like the depth of the system has always kind of been a strength for the Dodgers. Like they're smaller name signees, they're later round players they're drafting, like unheralded international prospects. It seems like they always just find value, and their player development group has been so consistent that they unlock players, they address like the weaknesses of players in a really consistent capacity. I mean, they have to be regarded as one of the best player development groups in the league. I mean, that's been, I feel like, pretty self-evident for years now. So I've got some players that I think are really interesting to talk about in this system. Maybe the most fun for me is Mike Sirota at number 3. But before we get to him, what are your thoughts on the state of Eduardo Quintero at 1 and Jose De Paula at 2, who are kind of leading this system here? And I guess what's your sense on like the separation of those two versus the other top 4 we're talking about as top 100 and Mike Sirota and Zaire Hope here?
Yeah, I think obviously a big part of what's keeping the farm system in a healthy place is their international scouting department, because those top 2 prospects are homegrown international signings. I mean, Quintero was a catcher / outfielder who they signed out of Venezuela. Josue De Paula, outfielder they signed out of the Dominican Republic. Both were signings of significance, but neither of them were over $1 million. Neither of them were over $500,000. So anybody could have signed these guys. They did go over $1 million to Emil Morales, who they signed, an infielder they signed out of the DR. But he's a top 10 prospect, good player in the lower levels. But and that doesn't even really include guys they've traded away, like a Thyron Lorenzo, the catcher they traded for Jack Flaherty to the Tigers, or Andy Pages, who's, I know he went like 2 for $1 billion in the postseason, but
did make a few impressive defensive plays that were useful. But
yeah, and look, he's a BREF, FWAR. Both of them had him as a 4-win player, so I think they're doing the international side is keeping them pretty healthy. Yeah, Quintero, like you compare him to Josue DePaula and Zaire Hope. He is a more well-rounded player than those guys. DePaula and Hope, you're really banking on what they do at the plate. Quintero is more defensive value. Hope showed more swing and miss this year. Mike Sirota, though, I think the tools and defensive profile across the board are just as good, but Sirota is 3 years older than Quintero, and they played at the same level this year. But on Quintero, it was a great season for him. He's always stood out for his athleticism and his hitting ability, and our scouting reports since before he made his pro debut. Great strike zone judgment. He drew 88 walks this year. He sets up with that slightly open stance. He gets his swing started with that barrel tip to the pitcher. It's pretty whippy through the zone. Josh talks in his report about some of the adjustments he made with his swing that helped the power spike to 19 home runs in 113 games this year, after he had 8 home runs in 132 games combined the previous 2 years. And then defensively, he's pretty solid in center field. I think he could play there in the big leagues. I don't know that he's a lock to stay there, but some of the parts, I think that's a really good player.
Yeah, it is. And to your point about him being extremely well-rounded, we've got 55 or better tools across the board. It's really 55 tools at every tool here except for hit, which gets a 60. In any given year in the prospect handbook, there's really not a lengthy list of players who we have legitimate 55s or better. I think the year Bobby Witt Jr. had that, there was maybe 2, him and one other player who I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll be curious just to see how many players get legitimate 5-tool treatment. I know some people say, like, to be a 5-tool player, you need 5 above average. Some have like 5+. Like, you can draw the line really wherever you want, but it is just rare to see the tool set be as balanced as it is for Quintero. I feel like the Dodgers do a really good job in helping their players access more power, whether it is with mechanical tweaks, helping players elevate the ball more frequently. I'm not exactly sure what the rationale or how it happened with Mike Sirota, because he was a player who in college, it's not like he had a massively heavy ground ball rate, but he also didn't hit the ball near as hard as what he's been hitting the ball or what he hit the ball this year. His exit velocity, his 90th percentile exit velocity is 107.1, which was one of the best in the system. I think trailing only Zaire Hope. If you stack up that exit velocity data with all the top 10 prospects in this division, it also jumps out as one of the best marks, which for a player like Mike Sirota, if you'd told me that he was going to have this sort of impact quality with a wood bat, he would have been a slam dunk top 10 pick in his draft year. Like, at the time, the hitting ability was pretty advanced. His zone skills and plate recognition was tremendous. He walked at a high rate. The defense has always been impressive in center field. He's a good runner. He has a good arm. And now we're talking about a guy who's added a significant amount of power compared to what was really a down draft year that allowed him to slide all the way to the 3rd round.
Yeah.
The Dodgers make a pretty savvy trade, acquire him as well as Charles Davalon, I guess the pick that became Charles Davalon in the trade that sent Gavin Lux to Cincinnati. So I'm massively excited about Mike Sirota. I'm unsure of where he's viewed in the prospect landscape, but I imagine I'll be towards the higher end of where he's placed in our staff.
Yeah, when they first made that trade, you could say, hey, Mike Sirota was a 3rd round pick. If the Dodgers liked him so much,
right,
why didn't they just draft him? But he was coming off a down season. They took Kellen Lindsey with their 1st round pick, and I don't think anybody really viewed Mike Sirota as a 1st round talent at the time of the draft.
No.
And then the Dodgers didn't have a 2nd round pick,
right,
because they lost it that year for signing Shohei Ohtani. So, we'll wait and see how that one works out for the Dodgers. But in the 3rd round, they didn't pick until 98 overall.
Yep.
And the Reds drafted Sirota 11 spots ahead of their pick. So they didn't even really have an opportunity after their first round.
If you're drafting him 23rd overall, which, to your point, would have been a big reach for basically everyone at the time.
Yeah, and now he's clearly belongs as a 1st rounder. He's way ahead of Kellen Lindsey. I remember
preseason that draft year, me and Peter were just obsessed with Mike Sirota, and like I felt a little bit bad about those takes at the time because of how his season progressed. Like the
He's
hitting and the
top
power just
10
backed up
in our rankings
significantly. Yeah,
coming
he
in.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it ages better now with a few years in hindsight and a year in the Dodgers system. But I really think too, and if that power is legit, if it's not just some mirage, because again, he is still at the lower levels. He's a little bit older than some of these other players who are at that level right now. If the power is legit, we're talking about a second player who you could say 55s or better across the board.
I mean, do you think he's the best prospect in the Dodgers system? He might be. I think it's the top 4 players in this system are all good. I think Sirota at least has a case, right? Hope and DePaula are corner guys.
Yep.
Sirota and Quintero are center fielders. And Josh did give Quintero the edge as best defensive outfielder in the organization. Sirota had a great year. It was cut short by injury, but 333, 452, 616 in 59 games between low A and high A. Sirota has more power than Quintero. Right. It's plus raw power. He sees the ball. He tracks it exceptionally well. So not only does he have great plate discipline to work walks and get on base, but he's comfortable letting the ball travel. He stays behind the ball well, and he's able to get the head out front when he wants to pull the ball, or he can catch it deeper, and he still has the power to take it deep to right field. So I think the hit power combination might be just as good as DePaula, except that Sirota is a more valuable defender. He's more power than Quintero. The case against him is that, yeah, he's 2 years older than both those guys, and he is a college guy who has been playing at the same levels as them in A-ball. I think these are very close calls.
I think so. I mean, we have Mike Sirota listed as the best hitter for average in the system, also the best athlete in the system, which I think maybe Sirota's athleticism gets a little bit underrated because he's not this like huge physically imposing guy who has just like obvious athleticism that jumps out the page and screams at you. But yeah, the defensive profile, his ability to get on base at a high level, he's never had a walk rate south of 13% in pro ball so far. I mean, it's a year, but also dating back to his time in college, he always walked at a high rate. His chase rate is one of the best in the minors of players with a significant amount of playing time. Unless you think there's a real reason why this power that he's showing is a mirage, and I don't really see why that would be the case. Maybe you look at some of the contact quality and say, okay, for a player of his age and the level he was at, it's a little bit higher than you would expect for a player of his reputation as a pure hitter. Like maybe you could say when he faces higher quality pitching, that's going to be exposed a little bit more. But there's really not a lot in his profile that I'm looking at and worrying about, both like from the scouting feedback, what it looks like on the field, his performance, the under the hood metrics. Like it's all really promising to me, which as a Mike Sirota fan is cool to see. So I think any of these players really in the top 4, you could probably make a pretty compelling case for them to be one. I would probably take Sirota. Just again, it's a clear bias that I'm trying to be transparent about here, but it's a fun group of outfielders.
Yeah, and Josue DePaula too. I mean, another big international or good international signing for them. Patience, power, left-handed hitting ability, especially the patience and power part. He drew 82 walks this year in 102 games. It was 84 the year before. And it's not being passive. He just stays within his strike zone, and then he can really whip the barrel through with a lot of bat speed. It's plus raw power, and he's 6'3", and there's still quite a bit of room left for him to get bigger and stronger, which I know for some scouts gives concern of like, okay, as he gets bigger and stronger, is he going to stay in an outfield corner? He's already not like a great defender out there. Is he going to go to first base or DH? But I think he's good enough to be a playable below average defender in the outfield. And when he does get bigger, I mean, we might have a player with 70 raw power. I think he covers the top of the strike zone extremely well. Stuff down, you can see he wasn't as productive, but you're banking on patience and left-handed power here. I think everything breaks right for him. You're kind of looking in that mold of like a Ryan Klesko back with the Braves when he was with them in the 90s. Please tell me you remember him, Carlos.
Yeah. No, I definitely do.
Yeah, like that left-handed hitting outfielder who's going to give you 25 plus home runs a year, draw a lot of walks, and then give some of those runs back with the way he plays defense, and whether it's left or right field.
What really stands out to me when looking at this system as a whole, because for a number of players now with the Dodgers, we've talked about their strengths in the swing decisions department, just understanding of the strike zone. Like I've done with our other podcasts on our divisional breakdowns, I've got all the hitters who are ranked top 10 in this division. So for data that we have for the 2025 minor league season, that's 34 players. Dodgers players, we have 6 of their players inside the top 14 when it comes to chase rate. Mike Sirota and Josue DePaula, who you just mentioned, are the top 2 with a 13 and 14% chase rate, respectively. Then you've got Quintero just a little bit further down the board at 18%. Alex Freeland, who we've not mentioned, at 18%. Zaire Hope at 21%. Charles Davalon, who was just drafted in a smaller sample, but 23%. This organization really selects for and prioritizes players who understand the strike zone. And it does seem like a lot of the tweaks they're making are either to optimize contact or batted ball angles with their hitters or to add a little bit more power. But with a lot of these hitters in the system, I feel like you can be confident that there's going to be a pretty healthy floor of on-base value, regardless of like how the contact questions trend or what sort of power they continue to tap into as they move up the minor league ladder.
Yeah, not a lot of free swingers in this organization.
No. Which we will get to some orgs in this division where that is the case. But any other players you want to highlight here for the Dodgers? A couple pitchers. It is a hitter-heavy top 10. Once again, I feel like that's been the case for the Dodgers for years and years now. But just 2 left-handed pitchers in this top 10. Jackson Ferris at number 5, and then Zach Root, who, along with Charles Davalon, was recently drafted by the team.
Well, the other big bat, too, is Zaire Hope.
It's not shortchange him.
Yeah, 90th percentile exit velocity this year was 109. I mean, it's the highest in the organization, and they have
That's also the highest in this division of top 10 hitters, too, so it's not just the Dodgers.
It's just one of the highest in the minor leagues, period. I mean, he hit a ball 115 this year. It's plus raw power. The problem we saw, where I think he's maybe a cut below some of these other guys right now, is just the swing and miss went way up. He was a 23% strikeout guy in 2024 in low A. This year in high A, it was 27%. And really on a per pitch basis, the swinging strike rate rose pretty noticeably too. So he should get dinged for that, but there's still a lot to like here. And I'm optimistic he can make an adjustment where his swing it still gets steep, same the way it was last year, where it was kind of a concern, but he's only 5'10" and he's really strong. So he's not one of these long arm power hitters where the length means they're going to have holes. With him, it's more bat path. So pitch him in or third, like he's fine. Stuff middle down is right in his wheelhouse, and then fastballs up, more issues. And then I think he'll also just get caught up over swinging too, because he can hit the ball 115 miles an hour, and sometimes it just looks like he's trying to hit the ball 215 miles an hour. And I think that costs him some barrel accuracy, but I don't think it's a long swing, and he has the raw power to be a 30 home run guy, and he does navigate the strike zone pretty well. I mean, he drew 79 walks this year. So I'm still optimistic on him that he turns into that middle of the lineup guy, but there are some things he's going to have to adjust to get to that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he wound up being more of like a 3 true outcomes sort of hitter, because he does grade out really well in the power department, really well in just the swing decisions department, but the miss is one of the more concerning miss rates of any hitter in this division. I also wonder too what his sort of platoon splits are going to be like this year. He was much better against righties than he was against lefties. It was like about a 150-ish gap in OPS against lefties versus righties. So some room for improvement there as well. And maybe as he just continues to face more high quality lefties, that will improve. I do think it is notable, like the amount of quality left-handed pitchers you're going to see as an amateur, even as a college amateur, compared to what you see in pro ball is pretty significant. So I wouldn't be quick to say like, oh, he can't handle left-handed pitching, because often you just need more ABs. You need to get used to more pitchers who are coming at you from the same side, who can land secondaries in the zone consistently, and you're just seeing probably better left-handed stuff than you've ever seen before. But again, like with all these hitters we're talking about in the Dodgers system, the swing decisions is really encouraging for me as like sort of a floor of his offensive value.
Yeah, that's the other part that's interesting about how the Dodgers have built their farm system is, I think we talked about the international signings being a source of strength for them, but also trades, which is, we're talking about Sirota, Hope, Jackson Ferris, even like, guys lower on like James Tibbs or Adam Serwinowski. Typically, the teams that tend to have a lot of top prospects in their farm system who were acquired by trades, that's not because you're winning at the big league level, right? It's because you're selling off major league players to get prospects in return, right? Like the White Sox, or in the case
Marlins.
Of the other group, I guess, would be like the Rays, right? Where as soon as guys get deep into salary arbitration, they're trading those guys. But typically, it's teams that are on the other end of the cycle from the Dodgers. But their number 3, 4, and 5 prospects were all acquired in trades. And that is one area where, look, like the Dodgers deserve credit for making smart decisions on who they're targeting as the players in return for those trades. But it is an area where the revenue and the payroll advantages that they do have can also just boost their farm system. So Zaire Hope and Jackson Ferris, 4 and 5 in their system. They got those 2 players from Michael Busch, where most teams would just say, hey, let's keep Michael Busch, and probably would have had him in the big leagues a year earlier than Michael Busch got there. But they had signed Freddie Freeman to play first base. They signed Shohei Ohtani.
I feel like too, like first base in particular feels like one of the more extravagant positions for teams to spend on. Like if you want to go out and spend on the elite of a first baseman at the major league level, like that's just probably not, like if you're a team that's not willing to spend as much as the Dodgers, when you actually do choose to spend, I feel like doing that at first base is maybe not the position a team would want to target, who's just a little bit more cautious with how much they're spending. So when you're willing to pay a first baseman like Freddie Freeman, when you have a homegrown replacement ready for him, that just kind of speaks to their willingness to spend big on the free agent market to me. Like, not that was not obvious beforehand.
Yeah, so where are they going to play Michael Busch? I mean, they love Michael Busch. They just didn't have an opening for him. So probably 29 other teams are saying, okay, they just promote Michael Busch, and now he's your first baseman or your DH. But the Dodgers, because they can sign 2 of the best free agents on the planet, they get to keep, or they can trade, I should say, Michael Busch and keep their farm system going with Zaire Hope and Jackson Ferris coming back. And they did a great job on the evaluation with Hope. He was an 11th round pick out of high school who had 11 games in rookie ball at the time of the trade before he broke out and became a top 100 prospect the next season. So Gavin Lux, right? Like he's coming off of a 2-WAR season. He's 26 years old. All right. Like for the Dodgers, that's tradable. Like they can afford to trade him. Right. And then they get Mike Sirota back. So, and they get, like you said, too, the draft pick that turns into Charles Davon. So another case where it's great job by the Dodgers, both of targeting Mike Sirota, who was coming off of a down year, and also a great job of helping him develop and turn into the player who's been able to tap into all that power that he did this season. But those trades are these kind of sneaky examples of where the Dodgers can leverage the financial advantages that they do have to build their farm system without having to damage or take away from their major league roster.
Yeah. Agreed. They just do things so well at really every level. I mean, what are your thoughts on these left-handed pitchers? You mentioned Jackson Ferris. I mean, he does feel like the typical sort of Dodgers pitching prospect, really loud, pure stuff, maybe some control and command that is still iffy and comes and goes and needs to be improved. The Dodgers have taken a lot of these sort of prep left-handed pitchers. I'm thinking of Maddox Bruns as a guy who was just left unprotected, who they spent a decent amount of draft capital on. Ferris has made some decent strides. I think the stuff universally is getting praised, but the strike throwing and just working deeper into games more consistently is a question mark. But that almost makes Zach Root all the more interesting to me, because Zach Root does not feel like a typical Dodgers pitching prospect. And the fact that they took him, 40, 41. I guess he was right before Charles Davalon, but both out of Arkansas. Like, Zach Root is this very polished strike throwing lefty that maybe doesn't have a ton of projection remaining. I think it's more secondaries for Root than really electric fastball velocity. So I think they've got two different sort of left-handed pitchers, both of whom I like quite a bit, that just add a little bit of variety to a hitter-heavy system.
Yeah. I mean, Ferris is a very solid pitching prospect, but I think there's a pretty significant drop off between
4 and 5.
Yeah, 4 and 5 with Hope and Ferris, which at the time of the trade, probably Ferris would have been the headliner there. But now I think Hope is gone significantly ahead of him.
Agreed.